Okay, so we're gonna get started, everyone. So I want to welcome, for those of you who have been here before at our first three webinars, I wanted to welcome you back. We do have a few new people here tonight, so thank you for joining our Fair Meal webinar. We had three others, February, March, and April, and now we took a little break, and now we're back. And we hope to continue these, once a month, just as we did, a few months back. So today we're going to be talking about, or tonight rather, we're going to be talking about back to school for the whole family. So the reason I really wanted to discuss for the whole family and rather than just for kids is because a lot of people that I speak with, a lot of, clients that I speak with or families that I speak with, they're sick and tired of preparing so many different meals for the whole family, right? And so kids are going back to school. A lot of adults now are starting to slowly go back into their offices. And we want to meal prep really just for the whole family. We don't want to make individual meals for every member of the family. So how can we do this in the most efficient way, in the most cost-effective way, and in the most nutritious way as well? So that's really what tonight's webinar is about. So I'm going to just do a little bit of an introduction, and then I will introduce you to our moderator, Juliana Diorzo. And then we'll kind of get going from there. And Juliana will go through this as well. But we do have Q&A at the end. We have time for some questions at the end, so feel free to put them in the chat. But also, during the presentation, please feel free to send in messages or questions rather. And if we have time, which we usually do have time, during the time that these questions come in, we'll definitely speak about them. So, Juliana will definitely be watching out for your questions that are coming in. So feel free to send in whenever you want to, and we'll see if we have time to get to them before the Q&A at the end. So I'll just kind of introduce Fair Meals a little bit, and then we'll get into tonight's topic. So about Fair Meals. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're a free online platform offering families healthy, simple, and affordable meal solutions. So we have tons of recipes, nutrition education, tips and tricks to kind of get the most affordable and nutritious meals for our families. Our mission is to empower families with the nutrition education, step-by-step recipes, and budget planning to make meals healthy, easy, and affordable. And our vision is really to combat America's chronic disease crisis by making healthy food an option for every family. We are seeing so many more chronic diseases, and COVID has exacerbated that even more so. And we're seeing them in the younger generations as well. We're seeing a lot of type 2 diabetes. We're seeing a lot of high blood pressure, and a lot of this is coming from our diets. So being able to just make our diets a little bit healthier can hopefully help combat these chronic diseases that are coming from our diets and from poor diets. So that's really what our vision is. So a little bit about me. So my name's Ariel Kessimum, for those of you who don't know. I am a registered dietitian, and I have a master's of science in nutrition and dietetics from New York University. I founded Fair Meals to offer nutritional guidance and easy recipes that empower families to eat well on a budget. I'm also a mother, I'm a wife, and I know how difficult it can be to provide healthy meals, for my family that are also convenient and affordable and don't take a lot of time. And that's definitely the key for me. I don't like recipes that take a long time, which I think was a big inspiration in me starting and a big driving force in me starting Fair Meals and me getting into nutrition in the first place as well. So with this resource, I hope to help families from all walks of life and all different types of families. A little bit about our moderator, Juliana. So she is a Canadian journalist and content creator known on Instagram for her weekly grocery hauls, which is awesome. Definitely check those out. She has a master's in science and broadcast digital journalism from Syracuse University and a BA in media production from Ryerson University's Radio Television Arts School in Toronto. And she's gained international media experience working for really big brands like Variety Magazine, Bumble, ICM Partners, and Our City Media. So without further ado, actually, I'm going to talk about today's agenda, and then I will pass the microphone over to Juliana. So today's agenda, we're just going to catch up a little bit. We're going to talk about how we can make, healthier family, how we can become healthier families, what we can do, how we can kind of get into that healthy mindset, going back to school, going back to the office, and everything of that sort. Debunking myths. I think that's something I always really like to do because there are so many different fad diets and so many different myths that are out there. So I really like to debunk those, and let people know that, what's true and what's not. And there's a lot of false things going on around out there. So it's really, it's something that I really like to talk to people about, and kind of, make people feel better about, what they're hearing. Also adding nutrients, that kind of goes into the whole thing of, not taking away, moderation versus elimination. Meal prep, which I always like to talk about. That includes some recipes that I have for just, meal prepping for families that are sending kids back to school, are going back to the office, and saving tips, which I pretty much try to bring into all of my webinars because I think everybody likes to save money. So without further ado, I am going to invite Juliana.
Well, hello, everybody. One thing that wasn't in my bio is that I'm a big fan of meal prep, and all during my time in grad school, that was like the one thing that I was doing, is a Sunday meal prep. So I'm super excited to even learn some more about that, and recipes and things that I can even do to substitute, and like you said, in moderation. So I guess one of the first things we're going to be talking about is really just the hardest thing about transitioning into school. So excited to get that started.
Yeah. So before I go, I'm actually going to put up all of the poll questions for tonight. We have, I think, 3 poll questions. I tried to separate them, but it was being a little bit funky. So I have them all together, but we'll discuss each of them kind of as we go on. So I will put out the poll right now. I'm going to launch that. And you guys can take your time and answer it. Take a few minutes or a minute or two, and then we'll move on with tonight's webinar. All right. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time. All right, I'm going to give another few seconds, and then I'm going to end the poll, and we'll talk about them. Talk about it a little bit later, or as they kind of come up. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Juliana, I don't know, can you see the answers or no?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay, so I'll discuss them, and then we'll go from there. So before I move on to the next slide, so I'm just going to talk about the first question first. So what's the hardest thing about transitioning back to school as it pertains to nutrition? And this is obviously completely subjective. Everybody obviously has, a different answer. And right now I wrote other, and if somebody wanted to click on that and then kind of write in the chat box what that other was, you could have done that. But most people wrote here that preparing lunches seems to be the hardest thing about transitioning back to school. We had a few people say preparing meals that the whole family will like, which actually I think would be the hardest. And then a few people said preparing snacks. And that's also really difficult. I think snacks are really difficult in general. I think there's most snacks that are really readily available are actually, are a little bit on the more unhealthy side. So I think that's also something that's really difficult. There's something difficult about all of them, which is why I said it's a very subjective answer, or rather a very subjective question. So Juliana, what do you think? I don't know if you voted or not, but what would you say is the hardest thing about transitioning back to school as it pertains to nutrition, or back to work, I guess, in your case?
I guess, yeah. I mean, if I had a family, just trying to adhere to everybody's things that they liked or things that they didn't like or didn't dietary restrictions. But I think even just getting back into that like mind game of prepping, and I feel like it's so much easier in the summer, and I'm sure for people that have kids too, like whether you just have to pack a lunch for a field trip or for, I guess, if camp goes on. But I feel like just getting back into that routine and everyone going back at the exact same time probably be hard to make enough for
Yeah, a
everybody.
lot of people always tell me they feel like they're being a line cook. A lot of moms or like caregivers say they feel like they're like line cooks because they're constantly making different meals. So I think that's for me, that seems like that would be the hardest, but I think they're all pretty hard. So all right, I'm gonna start going through some of these slides. So transitioning back to school and working lifestyle means on the go meals. So especially lunches and snacks, right? Most people are home again for dinner. So that's kind of why I launched this poll question, because this is what we're really going to be talking about right now. So we want to focus on meal prep for the whole family. And this allows us to save time and money, right? Because if we meal prep, if we make even menu prepping, just preparing our menus in the beginning of the week, that can save us a ton of time and a ton of money because we know what we need to buy, we know what we need to prep. And so we're not buying anything excess, we're buying exactly what we need. And if you don't have time on a Sunday to prep for the whole week, even prepping for a few days or even that menu prepping can really be a time saving tool as well as a money saving tool. It also allows us to emphasize nutrient dense foods because we're not last minute thinking, oh, what are we going to make, and just throwing together anything we can. We're putting some thought into it, so we're able to think about what is a well-rounded meal, what is a well-rounded snack. And then it also eliminates stress, and that I think comes with the saving time and money, because it can be really stressful to prepare lunches and prepare snacks every day. And listen, some kids do go to school and they get school lunch and they do get snacks in school, and that's great. But there are so many people who are every day making snacks, every day making lunches, and they're making dinner. So just kind of focusing on meal prepping or menu prepping can be really, really helpful in eliminating some of that stress. And also learning how to individualize meals can help us to meet nutritional needs and preferences of our own unique family. And obviously, that's super important because we want to make sure that our families are actually going to eat what we're making. So, yeah, that's going to be super important.
Totally. I feel like you can even engage it in making things happen in season too. Like if you plan it accordingly, whether like their specials are going on or anything that's like hitting the grocery store. I mean, we have Ontario peaches that are currently in season, but
No, yeah, I actually had one today. They were delicious.
yeah.
Um,
Welcome.
um, but yeah, no, it's true. Exactly. And that's making it fun, by the way, bringing in things that are in season. I know a lot of families that do meal prep, they kind of meal prep like every Monday is the same thing, every Tuesday is the same thing. And that's great. And that works for a lot of families that I speak with. But some families like to, keep it more interesting and bringing things, or even, a few times a month, keeping it interesting. So bringing things that are in season can help do that as well. So I think that's a really great idea. Um, so let's see if there was a question on this. I don't remember.
This one was the moderation vs elimination
Yes.
poll.
So the next question was, what's more important, moderation or elimination? So most of you said moderation. A few of you, or one of you rather, said elimination. And I'm definitely more team moderation. I think that everything in moderation. I know a lot of people may think that's a cliche or may think that's not true, but it is. It's true. We should be able to support a healthy diet by eating everything, and by eating everything in moderation. And there are things that we should focus more on, of course, in our day-to-day meals, but there's room for everything in our diet. And that's it's something that's really important to focus on. So how do we become healthier as a family? So we want to model eating patterns that promote a healthy and balanced relationship with food. So that's going to be really important, especially for families that have younger kids, because having a healthy relationship with food is key. And I've spoken about that in some of my previous webinars as well, because if we don't promote that, if we don't model that behavior for our kids, it can end up causing a bad relationship. It can end up, them having a bad relationship with food. And that's when we, sometimes we go down a dark hole, or our kids go down a dark hole. And we want to make sure that we do keep that positive relationship. So that's going to be super important. So we also want to practice that moderation rather than elimination. And that kind of goes with that first point that I spoke about, a minute ago. We want to teach our kids, and we ourselves want to be able to, practice that everything in moderation. We don't want to say we will never eat this, we will never eat that. There's room for everything in our diet, and we should really live by that. We shouldn't just say that, we should live by that, because that's really important. Because as soon as we start eliminating things, that's when we start becoming very restrictive, and that's when we don't end up having that balanced diet, and we end up having a negative relationship with food. So everything is to promote that positive, healthy relationship with food. We want to increase exposure to fruits and vegetables. Obviously, that's going to be super important. That should be a huge emphasis of keeping our families healthy. That should be parts of vegetables should be part of every meal for the most part. Fruit should be part of meals and snacks. We definitely want to increase exposure to that as well. Support healthy growth and development of children and adolescents. That's obviously going to be very important for caregivers who do have younger children. We want to bring in foods that are going to support this healthy growth. We also want to nurture mental health by promoting body positivity and avoiding fad diets. I think I mentioned this in the beginning, but there are so many fad diets out there right now. And so much false information that's being, put out in magazines and over the internet. And teenagers are getting access to these fad diets and all of this misinformation. And it really can promote, it can help promote on this unhealthy relationship with food. So being able to just kind of nurture that mental health by promoting the body positivity. Body positivity is going to be very important as parents, as caregivers, to make sure that our children continue to have this body positivity. We also want to support the immune system and gut health to boost energy levels and brain function. So all of that is, obviously key and important to become healthier as a family.
Okay. I was just going to even ask you for yourself in your own family and with your experience between kind of debating between moderation and elimination. Do you find that you are maybe substituting food groups or making a different choice when it comes to something? I know you talk later on, but I was just curious.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say we'll talk a little bit later on about some swaps that I make for my family and nutrient dense, which is something I talk a lot about as well. And that's kind of just trying to elevate nutrient profiles of the foods that we're eating. So I'll talk about that, I think, in a slide or two, or in a few slides rather. But that's something that I really focus on for my family, is how can we make things a little bit healthier, right? And I think that we all have to be really realistic when it comes to what our kids are going to eat or what our families are going to eat. And a lot of the time it's classic foods that kids love, right? Burgers, pizza, pasta, and we have to kind of work with that. We have to work with them. We can't expect them to just totally change their palates, because for centuries, kids have liked the same foods. My kid actually one of my kids actually has a little bit of a more sophisticated palate, so it gets a little bit more complicated. He doesn't like pasta or grilled cheese or anything that most kids like, but most kids do like the same foods. So we kind of have to work with that, and we have to see how can we elevate that nutrient profile. And as I mentioned in a few slides, we are going to talk about that. So I think for me, that's like really what I focus on. I focus, how can I add some vegetables in this? How can I add some fruits in this? How can I make this more nutrient dense? That's definitely always been, a focus of mine for myself, and now for my family as well.
I think the next one we're getting into is debunking myths. So that will be right on up to par with this, with our substitutes.
Okay. So, and then I'll go to this third poll before we get to that debunking myths. So a plant-based diet, we have a question that came in actually. Let's see. Can you pull that up? I can't even open the question right now.
I don't see the poll. Oh, wait, let me come out of this chat. Oh, yeah, I can see it. Okay. What about things like candy or other high sugar items? Even that should not be eliminated, question mark.
So yeah, I mean, there's always that's going to be a personal decision or a personal choice. I think, the USDA does give guidelines, and they do recommend, they don't even give you an exact number or a number that we should stay under for added sugar. They say to just try to, eat as little as possible of added sugars. So, that's a personal decision, how much you want, how much added sugar you want. And that all falls under candy and whatever else is mentioned in that question. All of that's going to be part of added sugar. Sometimes some people, want a piece of candy or two, and I'm not saying have it every day, all day, or after every meal. But there's a reason that, there's a reason that there's a market for candy. People love candy, and we shouldn't, tell ourselves that we can't ever have a piece of candy. I think that goes with cakes and cookies, and other sweet treats, whatever. Some people don't like candy and they rather have a piece of cake, but I think all of that kind of falls under that same umbrella of do what works for you. And we don't want to overdo it with added sugar. And we should definitely focus on, not adding too much into our diet every day. But a little bit here and there is definitely okay. And of course, we can eat that in moderation, just as we can cakes and candies and ice cream and everything, and so on and so forth.
Have you ever tried Smart Sweets?
I have not. No.
They're like a plant-based candy. They're Canadian.
Oh, yes. I have actually tried them. Listen, it does it. Like it definitely, it can kind of like take place. And, if you're having a sweet tooth moment, it can definitely fill that. But, it's not, I'm a big candy girl. So it doesn't really do it for me, but if it does it for you, that's great.
But here we go with myths.
So, okay. So a plant-based diet / meal is more expensive. So most of you said true. And then a few of you said false. So we're going to talk about that now as well. So, okay. Oops, sorry. Okay. So myth number 1. So a plant-based diet is more expensive. And so it says plant-based here, but I actually really like to talk more about it as a plant-focused diet. And when we get to, I think, the third or fourth myth, I'll explain to you why I like to use the term a plant-focused diet as opposed to a plant-based diet. But obviously the general population knows it as a plant-based diet. So that's why I'm going to use that term here. So is it more expensive? So not necessarily at all. We can use canned and dried goods, which are generally much cheaper than, or less expensive rather than, fresh produce, let's say. But, we can use beans and lentils and things of that sort, which are pretty inexpensive. So all of that kind of falls under, excuse me, a plant-based diet. We can use frozen fruits and vegetables. Again, those are also generally less expensive, and they also really do have that same nutrition, the same amount of nutrients for the most part as fresh produce, because it is frozen at peak ripeness. So we still do get those nutrients. And then we can buy things in bulk, like bulk nuts, grains, and seeds. And all of this falls under a plant-based diet. All of these foods can fall under that diet, and buying in bulk can definitely save money. And I've spoken about that in previous webinars as well. So, if those are things that your family eats a lot of and goes through a lot of, definitely those are things to buy in bulk. And all of that can make a plant-based diet pretty inexpensive. So it's definitely not necessarily more expensive. I did see 2 questions come in if we want to.
Going to say one of them is, would a plant-based diet using strictly canned items for cost be a good idea?
Strictly canned foods. Was that the question?
Mm-hmm. Plant-based diet using strictly canned items.
So I'm not going to say yes, because I think that canned foods, and I've spoken about this before as well, I think canned foods we should not have a diet strictly of canned foods, because there is a lot of the time excess sodium. We don't always get the same amount of nutrients as we're going to get from fresh or frozen. And again, like I said, there's a lot of added sodium. We can rinse off some of that sodium, but we're not going to be able to rinse all of it off. So a lot of the times we typically will end up eating a lot more sodium than we should or than we need to. And also, again, we're not going to be getting that same nutrient level that we will in fresh and frozen. So I'm not going to say use only canned fruits and vegetables. I don't think that's a good idea, but it's definitely something that we can and we should supplement into our diets. And we should use, there are things such as beans, chickpeas, certain vegetables that just make sense to use it in its canned form. But we should definitely, I wouldn't recommend everyone just eating a canned food diet. No.
And the second question was, what are the best veggies and fruits to buy canned or dried?
So dried, I typically recommend like beans and lentils and things of that sort. That's more what I'm going to recommend. And then, chickpeas, those are all good things to buy dried, and they stay really well. But for canned, I'm also going to recommend, beans and chickpeas, things that you can typically buy dried. I would also recommend are good to buy canned. The reason I would recommend them dried is because you obviously get less sodium, but they're also a little bit typically more. There's a little bit more of a process in cooking them, because a lot of the times you need to soak them to kind of bring them back to life a little bit before using them to cook. So they're not always as readily available to use for cooking purposes as canned beans or chickpeas would be. So I definitely say beans, so I think it depends on the person. I think it depends on how much time you have. It depends on, what your pantry space looks like. All of that really depends. What other canned do I recommend? I always recommend canned asparagus, canned olives. Olives are a great thing to have. It's a great fat that we can add into our diets. What other things do I like canned? I like some canned fruits. I tell people canned fruits mostly actually for younger kids, for babies rather, who are, if parents are doing like baby-led weaning, or they're teaching their kids to, hold fruits. A lot of times, like peaches, for example, canned peaches are good for them to hold, and then to just kind of, eat. They're big enough to hold and then kind of just like nibble out of. And they're also softer. They're also a little bit softer sometimes than the fresh ones. So, those are good things I tell people, during those stages to keep at home. I'm trying to think what else I would recommend. I'm trying to think canned corn is a really good thing to have. So it really depends, sometimes you have to think, okay, what are some things that you're going to put into your salad, right? What are some vegetables you're going to be eating that you eat a lot of, or you use as chickpeas? I love, because I love being able to make roasted chickpeas. So, that's also something I love to have at home. So it really depends on you. Again, all of this is really subjective. It's really subjective to what you like, what your family likes. But, I'm happy if people ever have questions and they want to email me and, ask me if they think these are good canned items to have to keep at home in their cabinets. I'm happy to answer those questions. So I think it really, again, depends on the person and the family. Okay. Ready for myth number two? We did myth number 2. Okay. Number 3, so a plant-based diet is a vegan diet. So that's really why I like to use the term plant-focused instead of plant-based, because a lot of times people do talk about a plant-based diet and they think of a vegan diet and really only, consuming foods that do follow a vegan diet. But a plant-based diet actually can really just be focusing and emphasizing, like I spoke about in one of the earlier slides, of really, really emphasizing bringing in fruits and vegetables and plant-based foods such as beans and legumes and lentils and all of those things. So it can include, though, you can follow a plant-based or a plant-focused diet and include seafood and meat, poultry, and dairy. But we should include plants at every meal. We should include fruits and vegetables, legumes, things of that sort at every meal. We should. And that's why I really like to use the term plant focused. And most of our plate should consume of that. But meat proteins and seafood proteins and dairy proteins, for that matter, they're all super important and they're all things I'm huge proponents of, and I myself eat as well. And if somebody does want to follow a vegan diet, it does a lot of time take a little bit more effort and a little bit more work to make sure that they are getting good, complete proteins, because not every protein is a complete protein. So we have to make sure that we are getting, people that are following a vegan diet have to make sure that they are getting good, complete proteins in their diets. But we should be focusing on bringing plants into every meal, but we should also, be able to add these types of proteins into our diet as well. And then myth number 4 is plant-based is for weight loss only. So this is not true. And I've actually had a lot of people, tell me, they want to be plant-based because they want to lose weight. And this is not true. A lot of the times actually plant-based can be more fattening, and can actually do the opposite, because there's a lot of things that are fried, and sometimes to bring more flavors out, they add things are more fried and there's more and it's more oily, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthier or it's going to support a weight loss diet, but it can obviously support healthy weight loss, but it can also support weight gain. And there are some people out there that do need to gain weight, and we shouldn't think, oh, somebody's eating, if I need to gain weight, then I shouldn't be eating vegetables and everything should have butter or oil and things of that sort. We can have a plant-based diet, and we can that can support a weight gain, or a person who does need to gain weight for that matter. And it's also safe for growing children and adolescents. And in fact, it's important for growing children and adolescents. They need those nutrients, those micronutrients that are in vegetables or in a plant-based diet. So all of these are myths. A lot of them are myths that, I've heard firsthand from, people I've worked with, or just, generally people who I speak with. So I definitely wanted to talk about that and speak to those myths. Okay. Any questions there before I go on?
Do we have a poll for adding nutrients? Is that can come after?
Sorry?
Do we have a poll for adding nutrients?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No.
All good.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So that's really that. And then, so Juliana, you actually will go back to now your topic of, or rather your question of what I do for my family or for myself, and my family, in terms of, moderation as opposed to elimination. And that's really, I'm always thinking about how can I add nutrients and to make things a little bit more nutrient dense and to make things a little bit healthier, right? And I have blog posts about this up on the website that you guys can take a look at. Most of my recipes talk about that as well. And most of my recipes talk about that as well. And they talk about adding, nutrients as well. So all of that's, on the Fair Meals website. You guys can go take a look at that as well. So single ingredient swaps that boost nutritional value of any meal. So everything to the left are typical ingredients people will use. And then everything to the right in that beige brownish color are some swaps that we can make. So there's canola oil. So what can you swap out for canola oil? You can obviously use olive oil. So I actually am going to recommend avocado oil. And I tell people avocado oil a lot because avocado oil and canola oil actually have higher smoke points than olive oil. So for things that we're cooking in high, temperatures, like roasting or anything of that sort, we should actually be using avocado oil for, as opposed to olive oil. There are some olive oils, like I think a lighter olive oil we can use in these higher temperatures, but avocado oil is a great swap for canola oil. And I use that as a lot when in pretty much anything that I would have used canola oil in. Cane sugar, so applesauce or banana. So obviously that's going to be mostly for baking. And I know a lot of people know the applesauce or banana trick, but it's really good. It's a really good way to just get some natural sweetness in there without using sugar. And if you want to use some sugar and then kind of substitute the rest out for applesauce or banana, that's also a really great idea. White bread is just a good swap, obviously, as a whole grain bread or a whole wheat bread and Ezekiel bread, whatever, whatever works for you or works for your family, but something that has a little bit more, fiber. So with white bread, they pretty much they strip the entire wheat of its fiber. And for whole wheat bread or whole grain bread, they keep some of that fiber intact. And that's what we want. That's gonna, we're always looking for things to boost our fiber intake. A lot of people don't eat enough fiber. So it's definitely, that's definitely a good swap to make. Mayonnaise, plain or Greek yogurt. So this really, really depends on you. Some people also really can't tolerate the taste of Greek yogurt. That's why I added plain yogurt in there, because plain yogurt is, a lot of recipes will call for Greek yogurt kind of as a substitute for mayonnaise, but plain yogurt works just as well. And it doesn't have as strong of a taste as Greek yogurt. And I find people just can handle that taste a little bit more. So people can use this in tuna salads. Oh, I think, one second. I missed this slide. I knew I missed that slide. Well, I'll go back to that in 1 second. Plain, so, tuna salad, and what else can we use mayonnaise in? A ranch dressing or a dill dressing, using a plain or a Greek yogurt is a really good idea there. And then iceberg lettuce for dark leafy greens instead of iceberg lettuce. So a lot of people eat salads and they'll put in iceberg lettuce and they're thinking, oh, I'm eating a salad, I'm getting the nutrients. There's actually eating iceberg lettuce is almost equivalent to eating water. There's really it's pretty neutral. There's nothing really good in iceberg lettuce. There's nothing bad in there, but we don't get vitamins and minerals. And if we're going to be eating something healthy, we may as well get nutrients out of it, right? So having dark leafy greens, even a romaine is better. Having spinach or kale as a base, or arugula or anything of that sort, something that's a little bit of a dark leafy green, that's going to give us more nutrients than iceberg lettuce, which, as I said before, is pretty neutral. It's not good. It's not necessarily good, and it's not necessarily bad for us. So definitely, those are definitely all some really good swaps. Now I'm going to go back to the last slide because I got carried away talking and didn't even get to talk about this slide. So what are some things that I add? So mac and cheese, and these are obviously all suggestions. And again, add things that work for you, add things that work for your families. But we don't, these are just really obviously examples and things that I myself add into dishes for my family, but you should and could do whatever you want. So for a macaroni and cheese, adding broccoli, adding peas, adding spinach, adding all of the above. These are really good ways to add some nutrients into mac and cheese, which is a dish that I would say most kids really do eat and love. So let's make it a little bit healthier. And now when I say adding these, I don't like to, I know there's like, people that recommend hiding ingredients, right? So using like butternut squash in the sauce so that their kids don't know they're eating butternut squash. I'm really not a big proponent of hiding ingredients into meals because I think kids should know what they're eating. I don't like tricking kids into eating things as well. I think they should know that they like broccoli or they don't like broccoli. They like butternut squash or they don't like butternut squash. I don't want to trick them into saying, oh, you're eating macaroni and cheese. Surprise, you're actually eating butternut squash. That's not at all what I like to do. And kids should know what they like and what they don't like, and they should know what they're eating. Just like we wouldn't want to be tricked into eating something that we didn't like. I know my dad's on here, probably listening. He doesn't like eggplant. And if somebody would tell him he's eating pizza and making like eggplant parmesan and they were telling him he was eating pizza, he'd probably eat it and really like it. But then if someone told him he was eating eggplant after, he'd be really annoyed. And I understand that. So it's the same thing with our kids. We don't want to hide, we don't want to, trick them into eating something that they don't necessarily like. So that was the mac and cheese. So spaghetti and meatballs. So adding spinach, that's a really easy thing. And now when we're making the meatballs, we're making a sauce. And I always say a sauce is a great vehicle for adding in nutrients. So add in like pack those nutrients in there, add in spinach, add in, onions, mushrooms. Chia seeds are a really good thing to add into sauce as well, because we get some good fiber in there. We get some omega-3s in there. They just kind of like, they also help thicken up sauces. I got that idea from a recipe. I don't remember from where, but it's a really good idea. And I do it sometimes when I do make meatballs for dinner. And you hardly notice it, if at all. So, add in as much as you can in there, into sauces, into, spaghetti and meatballs, into that sauce. Tuna salad, adding celery. We can add peppers, onions, really anything. Tuna salad, salmon salad, can pretty much be the same. You can add the same things to those as well. Again, with tuna salad, instead of using mayonnaise, we can use that low fat, the plain or the Greek yogurt. See, I knew there was a reason that I mixed up the slides, because now I can use that example in this slide. So yeah, that works. And then grilled cheese, adding tomatoes. We can add any types of vegetables. We can add onions, you can add cucumbers. I think also just like mixing up different cheeses. American cheese is pretty processed. It's not the best cheese, but if that's what your kids are going to eat, that's fine. Add some vegetables in there if you can. But also there are certain cheeses that are a little bit lower in fat, certain cheeses that are higher in calcium. Like adding some feta cheese into that, mixing a feta cheese and a mozzarella, a part skim mozzarella cheese. That can be a really great mixture. You're getting some more calcium in that feta cheese or that, that goat cheese, which may be a little bit of a more milder taste for our kids. Add some vegetables in there, make it fun. You can, take really, really basic foods and make it more fun. So I think, those are both really great ideas. And then for lasagna, adding zucchini, adding other vegetables. I think on the website we have a roasted vegetable ziti. And I think that's a really great way. So it's like zucchini, again, butternut squash, onions, mushrooms. It takes a bunch of, different vegetables. You can do whatever you want. You can pretty much roast them in the oven and then add it to your ziti, and there you go. Lasagna is definitely a more complicated dish to make. I think it's, it's yummy, but ziti is a little bit easier. So we do have that up on the website as well. But again, these are all really, really great ideas. I have some people that are messaging me. That's why I keep kind of like losing focus. But I do have one person who sent me a message. I don't know, Juliana, if you see them.
Plant-based. I was going to bring that
Yeah.
up.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Perfect. Yeah, so going back to the previous slide, Jordana asked, I was plant-based and found it brought down cholesterol and blood sugar. I also had fish. Do you think it is okay to eat fish if you're trying to be plant-based, or is that cheating? I guess plant-focused is really where that comes in, right?
Exactly. So I feel like that question came in before I before I spoke about that. But yes, exactly. We want to be plant focused. So no, it's not cheating, because if you're going to tell yourself that you're going to be follow a vegan diet, then that's one thing. But if you're going to say you're plant-based, and that you're primarily focused on, plant-based foods, then eating fish is great. And by the way, following, for bringing down blood pressure and cholesterol, following a Mediterranean diet is actually, what's really recommended, by a lot of doctors and by a lot of dietitians. And, following a Mediterranean diet is very heavy in fish, and, white meat chicken and poultry and everything of that sort. So that's definitely going to be very helpful in lowering cholesterol.
And Susan also said that she loved the meatball ideas, and I did too with the spinach. I've done them before with turkey and chicken too, which I feel like is so easy to eat, and they last so long. Like I feel like if you put them in a glass container, you probably can have them for like up to a week. I feel like in the fridge. I don't know if that's recommended.
No, that's totally fine. And also, I mean, keeping up for a week's probably not recommended, but if it works and you don't get sick, then great. But yes, but mixing chicken and spinach did you say chicken and spinach?
Yeah, chicken and spinach. But would you even recommend mixing meats? I wonder how, like chicken and turkey.
Yeah, people do that all the time. There are a ton of recipes out there to mix too. Some people like to use, let's say, like a white meat chicken, but it's like a little bit more dry. So then adding a little bit dark meat chicken, or adding some dark meat turkey, kind of mixing those together to make it a little bit more moist. But yeah, so these are all some really great ideas. And these are things that I myself do. And also, everyone should make it fun and do what works for your family, because that's obviously the most important part. All right, let's see what else we have. Okay, so then, okay, so now I'm up to meal prep. So as I said, meal prep, menu prepping, whatever works for you. I know meal prepping doesn't work for everyone, but even menu prepping is really important. So obviously it's to plan ahead to save money and time, and it makes life easier when everyone eats the same thing, right? So I have just some breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack ideas that we're going to quickly go through. And so the first one's overnight oats. So I know this can seem like pretty daunting, and a lot of people tell me it's pretty daunting, but it is seriously the easiest breakfast. I personally don't like cold oats. I'd prefer like a hot oatmeal. So I don't personally make this myself, but for people that can tolerate oats out of a refrigerator, this is like the best meal prep thing. It can stay for a few days in the refrigerator as well. It is so delicious. It's so healthy. It's so filling. And a lot of people tell me that their families eat them as well. And there are some brands that are actually already made. The Mush brand that you can find at Whole Foods or, pretty much any big supermarket. Those are actually really good and pretty clean ingredients. I've tried them. Again, I'm not so into the cold oat things, but for people that are, that's a really good brand that's ready made. But overnight oats are super easy. You do, some rolled oats, some yogurt, any sort of nuts and seeds that you want. You can do fresh fruit, frozen fruit. You can do dried fruit, like dried cranberries, dried raisins, dried apricot, anything of that sort. And it's so easy, and it's like easy to take on the go as well. So it's a great idea. Have you ever had?
Oh yeah, I love them. That was like a grad school staple. Same with chia seeds. I don't know if you've ever done chia seed pudding.
Yes.
I feel like kids would probably love that, because they like the way they feel on your tongue. It feels like jelly in a sense. And
I agree.
So good. But
I agree.
you were like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say chia pudding's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Too.
As you were saying this, I remember I bought like one that from a grocery store here that has to be like done like a kit almost. And now I want to do it. And I never did it in the summer, but I feel like it'd be refreshing in the morning now, especially with our weather.
It's good. It's a good summer. Now there's like heat waves all over the world. So definitely very refreshing. Mm-hmm. So for lunch, taco bowl. So that, again, these are things that sound really daunting, but when you actually look at the ingredients, they're pretty simple. So, using some white or brown rice. And so obviously I'm going to tell you to use brown rice, but if your family is so opposed to brown rice and they're only going to eat white rice, then let's make this more nutrient dense. Let's add nutrients that, will kind of elevate that nutrient profile a little bit, right? So we're going to add some beans, some tomatoes. You can use fresh tomatoes. You can use canned tomatoes. Adding some corn. You can add meat into there if you want. You can add some chicken. You can add some ground beef, whatever it is that your families will enjoy. So again, like you hear the word taco bowl, it may seem really daunting, but when you actually look at the ingredients and break it down, it's pretty simple. Then we have, so for dinner, so turkey bolognese sounds really fancy. It's really not. It's a box of pasta. I'm going to say again, whole wheat pasta. If your family's really opposed to it, find a pasta that they'll like. There's so many out there now. There's brown rice pasta, lentil pasta. There's chickpea pasta, anything that your family will like. They're great. They're obviously really good things. Use whatever your family will eat. Using some ground turkey. This is just to use more lean protein as opposed to a ground beef. But if you are going to use ground beef, that's fine too. You can also get an extra lean ground beef. Adding some tomato sauce and then using some frozen vegetables. And that's it. That's like easy. And like I mentioned before with the meatballs, when we adding things into that sauce, we can add whatever we would have into the meatball sauce, we can add into this turkey meat sauce or this turkey bolognese rather. So again, really, really easy, really simple, using whatever you want. It sounds more daunting than it is when you look at the ingredients. It's pretty simple. And then some snack ideas. So most of these are allergen-friendly snacks that are lower in sugar, higher in protein. And this obviously will help promote fullness, keep families energized throughout the day, and from keeping us from feeling, really, really hungry or keeping our blood sugars from kind of going all over the place. So hummus and veggies is a great snack. This is not really allergen friendly because tahini does have seeds. I know some schools do allow seeds, some don't, because it does have sesame, or rather sesame are sesame free, some are not. So but chickpeas and tahini are complete proteins, which is what like hummus is basically made out of. So that's a great snack. Pair that with some vegetables, fruit, and string cheese. I'm a huge proponent of this snack. Pairing fruit with a fat or a protein is really important because this is what prevents our blood sugar from spiking and from going all over the place. So you'll notice sometimes if you'll have a fruit, you'll, be full for like a half hour and then you get starving again. And that's because our blood sugars are kind of out of whack and all over the place. So when we pair that with the protein, it's going to help keep us fuller and help kind of keep those blood sugars in check. Hard-boiled eggs are also a really, really great snack. That with like a whole grain cracker, like those Mary crackers also are great. That's a really great snack. It's a great source of fat. It's a great source of protein, keeps us full. It's basically a meal, but as a snack. And that's how you should look at snacks sometimes, just small meals. Sun butter on whole wheat bread or on a cracker. The reason I said sun butter is because this is an allergen-friendly peanut butter. I personally think it tastes very similar to peanut butter. I know some kids don't like it, but this is a really great thing to keep in your house. If you are going back to work, if your kids are going back to school, sun butter is a really good thing to keep at home because it is allergen-friendly. And turkey slices. Turkey slices are so easy. There's fun things we can do. You can roll them nicely. You can kind of like make a little wrap with lettuce. And that's a great snack. And it's a really easy, simple way to incorporate lean protein as well. And then, of course, I like to talk about saving tips because I always like to bring it into my webinars because I think they're important. So it's important to shop sales, look for sales, do a little bit more effort in looking for those sales ahead of time because that obviously can help save money. Buy in bulk only if it makes sense for you. Don't go buy everything in bulk and then not use it. But if there's certain ingredients or foods that your family eats a ton of, then it's a great idea to buy those in bulk. Use coupons. If you find in the circulary, you can see sometimes there are coupons in there. Sometimes we get some local magazines, sent to us in the mail. See if there are coupons for some local stores. Choose frozen or choose canned. Again, if those make sense for the foods that we're going to be cooking and using, especially frozen for sure. Batch cook, cook a ton of one food, freeze it, and have it, for a few days or for, over time. And freeze leftovers. We can make, large quantities and don't feel like, it needs to go to waste if you don't finish it. If you don't finish it, put it in the freezer and save it for a meal another time. And these are all saving tips for, for time and money. And I think that's really, what Fair Meals is all about. So that is really it. So I want to take some questions. We have a few minutes for some questions.
We do have one already lined up that came through. And so this attendee said, I've heard sunflower seeds are toxic to your liver. Should we be concerned about using them regularly?
So I've actually never heard that before. I can do some research into it, but I had never heard that sunflower seeds are toxic to your liver, but I can look into that.
Yeah, I've had them. I've tried the seed butter before, and sometimes they even make like these kind of like Reese's peanut butter cups, but with sunflower seed butter. Okay, another question just came through. What are the best seeds/nuts to combine for a healthy snack mix?
That's a good question. I personally love pumpkin seeds. I also love sunflower seeds. And so really any seeds of your choice. There's not too much of a difference in terms of like its nutrient makeup in terms of calories or anything of that sort. For nuts, you're gonna get the biggest bang for your buck out of almonds. You can have them that's one of the nuts you can have the most of for the least amount of calories. So almonds are a great snack. But don't, if you're not really focusing so much on that as we should just be eating them because they're really great for us. Then, anything, cashews. I always say cashews, almonds, walnuts. Those are all really, really great nuts to add to our diet. Peanuts are great as well. They definitely are a little bit higher in calories, but it's a great snack. So, adding any of that together, adding a little bit of dark chocolate in there as well, adding some dried fruit in there that's making a trail mix. That's a really, really great snack. It's super filling. We're getting healthy fats, we're getting protein, and it's delicious. So.
Okay, the next question is, can I use instant oatmeal for overnight oats, or is overnight oats something different?
I would not use instant oatmeal for overnight oats. Instant oatmeal is fine to use if you're going to have oatmeal. It's really fine. It's a little bit more processed. That's like really the only difference, but it doesn't stay as well. The thing with the overnight oats is because oats are they take a little bit longer. Like if you notice, if you take regular oats and you try to make instant oatmeal out of it, it wouldn't cook. They're a little bit harder than, and because they're less processed than instant oatmeals. So they need more time to kind of absorb and soak in the liquid. They still do get a little bit mushy, but not like instant oatmeal would. Instant oatmeal would kind of just, it wouldn't work out so well. So I definitely recommend just buying some good old rolled oats.
And the next one is, where can I see these recipes? Are they on your website?
Right now they're not on my website, but I'm going to send them out in our newsletter. So look out for that.
The other one that came through was the article relating to the sunflower seeds. So I can tag that and provide it.
Okay. Yeah, send that to me. I'm really happy to look into that. And thanks for teaching me things too. I love learning. So I'm happy to hear that, as I'm happy to see that. And I'll take a look into that. So I don't know if anyone else has any questions, but here is our contact information. If anyone has any questions, they can email me at info@fairmeals.com. Obviously, check out our website, Facebook. We have some videos on YouTube as well. And yeah, check out our Instagram, our Facebook, and that's really it. And just check out our recipes and, sign up for our newsletter. You can do that now on our website. And I'll send these recipes, and I will also be sending some information about upcoming webinars and any upcoming events for Fair Meals as well.
It was great. This was such a nice opportunity to learn. I feel like this has been like a plethora of options for me to now know.
Thank you. And thank you for being here, Juliana. This was really great. And I thought we had a great conversation. So everyone, thank you for coming and for being here tonight. And, for those of you who are new, thanks for joining us. And those of you who have been here before, thanks for coming back again. And I had a really good time, and I look forward to seeing you guys at our next webinar. Okay.
Wow, the last question was, thank you for a great webinar. So
thank you. You're welcome. Thanks, everyone. Bye.